Nate Staniforth is one of the finest minds working in magic today. He's got a new book coming out. The trailer's awesome. Check it out, and then we'll talk to Nate. Nate Staniforth, to you. 10 years ago, I guess we have to drink, right? That's the thing? We met 10 years ago, and it has been amazing to watch your career skyrocket. From developing material that was performed by David Blaine to, Teller, you're one of 22 people on the planet that Teller follows on Twitter. He doesn't follow me on Twitter.
I'm pretty excited about that. I'm not going to lie. I tweet 3 times a year, and
and Teller waits for it nonstop. So, for those who don't know your particular style of magic, how do you describe what you do?
Sure. I love the experience of magic, but I'm a terrible showman, right? So, and for years I thought I had to dress up and I wore a tuxedo. I thought I had to be that guy on stage. And then it sort of occurred to me, I can just do the part of magic that I love, which is direct, sort of personal. It's like street magic for a theater audience, right?
Well, and this has always been the fascinating part to me. We've done shows together, and it's like you're the Bob Dylan of magic, and I'm the Tenacious D or something, you know?
Very kind of you, yeah.
Or trying to be the Tenacious D.
Let's find some other Nobel laureates that I could be related to as well, right?
Yes. Well, you have a real knack for stripping away everything that's not pure wonder. Anything that is a cheap line or a cheap pop doesn't go. You have no music cues throughout your entire show. You violate space and presence by leaving the stage. Like when we ended our show at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, you walked out into the audience and said, "This is a terrible idea to end the show, but I'm just going to stand right here in the middle. Everybody come in," and everybody just swarmed in because you had them in the palm of your hand. How long did it take to craft that dynamic, to figure out this is how I weave the spell over everyone to electrify the whole room?
Yeah, I mean, there's that quote that Churchill had about the Americans. He said, the Americans always do the right thing after finding all of the wrong ways first. And that's how I did magic. For the longest time, I thought I had to sort of pretend to be all the magicians I saw on TV.
Was there, obviously this book is a huge moment for you, but previous to this book, was there one particular moment of like I made it, I've made my mark as a magician?
Oh, I mean, I think that moment comes at certain points in every good show, and you miss it in every bad show. It's like, I think all magicians can relate to that feeling of having all of the circumstances just align, and for one instant, you are the greatest magician in the world. And I love that feeling.
Let's talk about the book. You were kind enough to give me an advance copy, and it is not an exaggeration, and it's probably not the coolest thing to say, but the opening scene of the book, utterly electrified me because you so perfectly capture what it's like to be in the middle of a white hot room creating a miracle for a charged audience. Later in the book, I found myself literally moved to tears because you put words to the whole reason that I got into magic. And that high, in so many ways, magicians are all junkies chasing that high of the first time they were really fooled. That's why we go watch other magicians, just desperately hoping to be blown away. But you had a different path. You eventually got disillusioned and frustrated and disgusted, which I've experienced as well. But whereas I channeled energy into other projects, you said double middle fingers and went across the world.
Yeah.
How did you get to that point?
I think all professions have this sort of veneer or this sort of image that you see on the outside, right? You want to be a doctor, you want to be a lawyer, you want to be a fisherman, whatever it is. There's a difference between the way a job looks on the outside and the grinding day-to-day reality within, right? Mm-hmm. And I mean, you know what it's like to go on tour. You're gone 150 days a year, 200 days a year.
Well, and this is the other part that comes through in your book, is that you don't love the rock star life being on the road. For you, that is a price that you have to pay in order to reach new people. Which is so backwards from most people, many people watching who want to be magicians. So when you went to India, is it a spoiler to say what you found there? Can you hint at where people will journey in the book?
Let me say this as a way of answering. I thought magic isn't the least understood of the art forms. It's the most misunderstood, right? It's not just that the public doesn't understand, it's that they actively think something that isn't true.
Like modern art is the punching bag of like, I don't get it.
Right.
But at least it's blank and you're like, I don't get it. It's not like you actively misunderstand what's going on.
Right, magic's different.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks they understand magic, and it's the magicians who know, who stand on stage and look in the audience and see the transformation that comes over people. So the goal with the book was to bring the reader up on stage, right? To show them, show them the process of sharing the experience of wonder with someone.
Well, and it's shockingly honest in that regard, because it's not a book about where your pinky goes in this sleight or that sleight, but instead it's where your mind goes, and it's so accurate in that regard.
Yeah. For me, performing has always felt like boxing, right? I can't relate to the people who say they love being on stage, because for me it's like a bar fight, or like you're a bullfighter in the arena, and it's far more brutal than it is fun. But there is that moment if you sort of go there with the right reasons, and if you've done your homework, where you can create that spark or that fire, and I loved that more than anything. But one of the problems that I had is the price that I had to pay to do that was that I was traveling all the time. I was working just an obscene amount, and I just became totally disillusioned with what it meant to be a professional magician. And there's this one particularly bad show where I walked out in the middle. I was like, I'm done. I went back to my hotel room, and I really looked at stopping, and maybe I'd be a gardener, maybe I'd work at Starbucks or something.
So how does that phone call go, or that in-person conversation with your wife, with newborn kids and whatnot, and just say, I'm going to drop everything and go to India?
Well, I didn't have my two boys when I went to India. That would have been a much harder phone call.
Man, yeah.
But I think when I was 26 years old is when it all sort of fell apart for me, and that's pretty young to hit a midlife crisis, right? That's pretty young to give up on something that I've cared about for so long. On that leg of the tour, it was just a coincidence. I just happened to be reading this book about traditional Indian street magic. And I went back to the hotel, and I had this crazy dream of leaving everything behind, sort of going off on a capital A adventure, right?
Yeah.
Let me go find all this magic that I'm reading about in the book. Let me see it for myself, not because I'm looking for tricks, but because I wanted to remember how it felt before I knew anything about tricks, right? I wanted to be amazed, and so I did that.
Answer me this: the title is, among magicians, I suspect, going to be a bit provocative, because magicians have a societal role as the vanguards of skepticism for people who defraud other people.
Yeah.
And for you to boldly claim, I went looking for real magic and I found it.
Yeah.
Sounds a little bit like some secret bullshit.
Like I'm picking a fight there a little bit. Yeah. I might be doing that. Yeah. Bring it. Yeah.
Well, and you do a fantastic job throughout the book of representing different viewpoints about exactly that thing.
Yeah.
Can you sketch just a few vignettes of what it was like in India? Because I know you've posted some of the video of your actual adventure.
Here was my experience. I went there thinking that I was looking for street performers and snake charmers and mystics, right? I thought I was looking for the magicians in that community. And I found them, but the most astonishing, the magic for me was the cataclysmic disruption of all of my routines and daily processes, right? There's a difference between the world as it is and the world as you tell yourself it is, right? We all become very good at getting used to things and making things ordinary. And the thing that travel and magic have in common is they both deliver this death blow to that sort of sense of certainty that we have about the world, right? And so I was on the other side of the planet in a culture that I didn't understand. I couldn't speak the language. I was so far out of my element that I had no choice but to stay awake and to pay attention, and that was astonishing.
That's one of the things I enjoyed most about the book is the stark honesty of it. You are unflattering to yourself. You are unflattering to magic at times, and you are unflattering to India at times, and yet you also very clearly are utterly enamored with all three, especially yourself. No.
It's a memoir, Brian. It takes a certain arrogance to, you know what you need? 250 pages.
When many of the people watching this interview have read the letter that Teller wrote me when I was 19 years old, all these years ago.
I've read it too.
That contains in it, it's a 4.5-page essay about the nature of creativity and how to make it as an independent creator. He happens to be talking about showbiz and magic, but it's universal. And in fact, my favorite thing is Dan Trachtenberg, the director of 10 Cloverfield Lane. He was kind enough to tweet that blog post saying, if you want to be a magician, you have to read this essay. And then he tweeted immediately after, if you want to be a director, you have to read this essay. If you want to be an artist, you have to read this essay. If you want to be ... And I think if anybody thinks this is a book about magic, they do themselves a disservice. This is a book about what it means to love your craft, to be afraid that you're about to break up, because you have 2 marriages in this book. You're married to your wife and to magic, and yet you found a wonderful way to come back around. Would that be an accurate way to sum it up?
Very, very much so. Around graduation time, there are all these cards that are given talking about how great it is to follow your dream. And those are often given by people who've never tried it, right? It's a much different thing to want to be a magician than it is to actually to live that, right? To wake up early and practice and travel and do all of the things that are required to do that. And that has been a long and strange journey for me.
Many magicians will know you for your fantastic lottery illusion that was performed by David Blaine. In fact, on the Scam School channel, we showed a performance of it that was just utterly fantastic. You later transformed that into a very limited edition manuscript, a huge thick book in great detail with like 7 or 8 different ways to do it.
Right.
And you, how limited was that? How many of those did you make?
I printed 150 copies and sold it for some ridiculous price.
Don't you hide behind it. It was $300.
It's a lot.
And I enjoyed watching all the forums. They're like, who's this kid charging $300? And then they read it and they're like, it's pretty great. It's pretty great. And then, and by the way, I even saw on eBay $800 for a used copy because they're truly worried. When you said limited edition, you weren't messing around.
No, I'm not messing around. I will never release that again.
That's so good. But I think I love what you're doing next even more.
Yeah. So I had this idea that I want to sort of open source a magic illusion. I have this idea I've been chasing for 18 months. And it's sort of, if I had to describe it without telling you what it is, I would call it a cross between, it's a lot of the same thinking of my lottery illusion, and then like the Balducci levitation, like it's part party stunt, part wild, crazy illusion.
And you've been kind enough to sketch out the details of this, because it's not something you're ever going to do in a stage show. It's not going to be the finale.
It'd be impossible to perform it professionally.
But it is something literally any human being can do. Anyone can do this, and it will be quite possibly the most magical experience the single person is going to ever have. Can we just say the effect?
Well, so let me say this. By any metric, it's a terrible trick. It doesn't pack flat, doesn't fit in your pocket. Like, right, there's a lot of boxes that it doesn't tick.
Right.
But it feels like magic.
The effect is quite literally, you vanish right before their eyes.
Yeah.
Right before their eyes.
Yeah.
And from the details you've given, I have no doubt that it will seem like an actual teleportation to somebody. Just you're there, whew, you're gone.
Yep.
And it's so clever. Now, normally, the way, much like software development, you make the software and then you release it and you have to take all the money and you keep everything secret and proprietary.
Right.
But you're saying you want to open source this.
Right. I think this is a good enough an idea that I want everyone to help refine it and develop it. It's something that you could take and make your own in any number of different ways. So I didn't want to just make one version and put it out. I want to teach the essentials and then let people go their own way with it.
So you're going to have a complete video that completely explains everything about the concept, the execution, how to do it, different methods for everything.
Right.
This is the kind of thing that would be another $300 release, but you're going to do it totally free. What's the hook?
So the book, Here is Real Magic, comes out in January. For everyone who pre-orders the book and emails me their receipt.
And I assume like a picture of a physical receipt or a screenshot of Amazon?
Sure, you can go into your local bookstore and just take a picture of the receipt too, that's fine. But pre-order the book before January 16th. Email it to me at natestaniforth@gmail.com, and I will respond with a thank you note and a link to the video.
Dude, that's amazing.
For free.
And for the record, I'm going to tell all you guys, worth it. Worth it. This is a $300 idea. It is so good. You are gonna freak the hell out. Just get it. Man, anything else you want to say about the book or the experience?
I will say, if anyone comes up with anything good with this trick in the video, let me know. I'm excited to see what the community does. Yeah.
Nate Staniforth, congratulations not only on the book getting published, but it being a genuine, important treatise on what it means to love your craft and your art. You really knocked it out of the park, man.
Thank you, Brian.